Deon, welcome and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me about this very critical business topic. Um, and yeah, Deon, I've known you for I think what 12 to 13 years now, and I've worked
Oh
with you.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, and I've worked with
Oh
you
wow.
and DFA
Yeah.
in different capacities. Um, so I think I can say that I know you and the company and the the team um, fairly well. But for the viewers,
Yeah.
if you can just give us a brief overview or a quick introduction as to who DFA is, let's call it your 30-second DFA elevator pitch.
Profile.
Yeah. So yeah.
Thanks, Nino. Firstly, yeah, no, firstly, thanks, I think, for putting this together. I think it was way overdue. As some people always say, we the best kept secret. So maybe it's time to get the secret out there
Yes.
and let everyone know who we are. Yeah, so DFA Solutions started in 2005. It was born out of a corporate entity. It basically started with just myself and, believe it or not, Roger Stradum, who's still with me. And basically the business then built from there. The traditional business was very much, old style, selling of hardware, selling of services, infrastructure. But we evolved pretty quickly. About 2 years into DFA's lifespan, we evolved into providing managed services, because we felt that was the future. IT as a service as opposed to IT as a purchase. And with that, what always kind of resonated through the business was definitely the security aspect. So, I mean, we started off with Valve 3.12, Windows for workgroups, Windows 3.1, Windows NT. Um, we started off with Norton's antivirus version 5. So at the end of the day, quite a lot of, I would say that we are old school in terms of experience. But as we know, technology morphs. It's swift, it's quick, times change. I mean, we've seen how quick and at a rapid pace that technology moves. So very quickly I realized, now hold on, I need to get some clever people around me. And I'm proud to say that a lot of the people that I employ is a lot smarter than me. And I'm glad that they're smarter than me, because at the end of the day, those are the guys that I depend upon
Mm.
to make DFA tick. And we got clients within retail, we got clients within government, we got clients within municipality space, financial services. So we quite evenly spread, and that also helps in terms of experience. So if I must collectively just kind of state our experience in terms of IT and in terms of IT security, because the one goes hand in hand, collectively, I mean, we must easily have about, wow, I'd say most probably between 60 or 80 years experience, if I add each person's experience level. And the people within DFA as well, they've literally been handpicked. I always say DFA is not a job, it's a lifestyle. And if you ask any of the guys that work for DFA, I'm sure that they will agree. I mean, you've experienced it yourself,
Mm.
being on the other side as a client of
Fine.
ours,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, that's kind of DFA in a very short pitch.
In a
Yes, we
nutshell.
got the websites, we got the LinkedIn, we got all the social media stuff. But I think, what's most important, is that we actually walk the talk. We don't do vapor. And I think that's the most important part about all of this. Even our guys, in terms of certifications, by the time they get certified, they can actually do the work. They haven't just got a certificate to say, oh, guess what? DFA's got 3 engineers, and
Yeah.
certified in XYZ or whatever. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes, yes.
Um, in the beginning, and I think this is quite important as well to actually mention, is that in the beginning we were extremely semantic centric. very, again, coming from the Norton's background. But as time evolved and as security evolved, I picked up very quickly that we need to have layered levels of security. You can't just have one medium. And hence, we spread our wings into other products as well. And I mean, I'm not going to go into the products. You know, people can go onto our website. It's not a product presentation. They're more than welcome to go onto the website and see what a DFA has to offer. And I think the one exciting part that DFA has to offer is the DFA Protect side of things, because that's really where we went to go and source product and actually put together product in order to build the DFA Protect solution. And it's the DFA Protect solution that moves you away from the traditional world of antivirus and firewalls and backups and disaster recovery and the normal traditional monitoring systems. You actually don't realize exactly what is really going on your network. And when I say that you don't realize until you start implementing these, if I can call it, these next gen solutions that we've put into the DFA Protect platform. Take monitoring of the dark web, for example. You know, when we started that, people thought, what is that? You know, I mean, now the dark web is so relevant. I mean, you know, I think one of the biggest, and we've seen just the way trends and the way things have been going, is that most of these attacks come from credential theft. That's normally the start. And these guys then sit on your network. Yeah, they sit on your network and they wait and they watch. And how do they get those credentials? You know, it could be social engineering. It could be details that have been hacked onto the dark web. There is so many different ways of how these guys get your credentials. It could be just bad administrations. People leave a company, their accounts don't get disabled. Common hygiene. And I think from that perspective, and I mean, even on the phishing side of things as well, you know, I mean, I'm going to give my age away, yeah? But in our day, fishing was like going down to the river or going to the sea and playing the line in the water.
That was fishing, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, nowadays when we talk about phishing, you know, it's someone trying to bait you, someone trying to capture your information, trying to get you to click on something, trying to get you to go onto something, trying to get you to reveal your information. And that kind of then leads into another world, you know. I think, you know, what's so important that such a lot of companies miss is user education.
Yeah.
I honestly think that a lot of this can be prevented. Yes, you got to have your antivirus, you got to have your anti-phishing tools, you got to have your mail security, you got to have security. But I think user education in terms of cyber training is so important. And I'm saying cyber security awareness, end user training. I'm not talking about someone learning how to hack or the IT guy, you know, going on these courses and things and that, because they're not normally the target. The target is your clerk sitting somewhere, you know, and all you need is just one. And that one creates a gap. And before you know it, they are on your network. I'm sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
With that said, before you move, I just want to share a screen quickly with some statistics that I think is really relevant to what you're talking about now. So if I just want to share the screen quickly. Can you see that?
Let me just check, Nino. Yes, I can. Yeah, 100%.
So basically, it's just a few bullet points of things that I found, and this is pre the COVID COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown. So the
Yeah.
stats is from that side. And
Yeah.
it's suspected that after things start to normalize, which whatever normal means anymore, I
Yeah.
think the stats are going to be much higher. But for the purpose of what we're discussing in cyber attacks and cybersecurity, I think it's still relevant, especially
No.
taking into account that this was just pre-COVID lockdown. So we saw that there was the cyber attacks rose by a staggering 350% in, I think this was around about 2018, 2019. And that's massive. Looking at over 80,000 cyber attacks per day, I think that accounts to what, 29 million something a year. If you
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive.
But funny enough, 43% of cyber attacks target small businesses, the SME market, and not these big corporates like we're seeing on the news now, your Transnets and those big companies. 43% actually target small business, and small business in the South African sense, I think reflects the business sector where the annual turnover is, I think, under 50 million per year. So if you are a company that makes under 50 million, you will fall in the SME bracket, somewhere within the SME bracket.
That category, yes.
Yeah. So it's not the big boys in that's normally targeted. It's the SMEs. And then, as you mentioned, 98% of attacks rely on some form of social engineering, of which phishing is one. And it's not always a guy sitting behind the computer trying to hack as we see it on the TV. The TV glamorizes hacking and that. This is actually social engineering. It can be done through a simple telephone call. Somebody phones you to ask you for a password. Somebody sends you an email to ask you for something, or ask you to click on somewhere. Then you mentioned phishing. So surprisingly, 62% of businesses experience phishing attacks, which is also something that you don't normally hear about, because your IT guys don't share that information with you as an end user or in general. And then again, 90% of successful breaches included a phishing element, which is very interesting as well, that you mentioned phishing. So if we go down, this is where it becomes really interesting. And why this topic and discussion for me was important is that 70% of businesses don't have adequate cybersecurity protection. So you mentioned the antivirus and the firewalls, etc., etc. But
the additional security.
That doesn't mean because you've got antivirus and you've got world-class antivirus, and I'm not going to mention brands, but that doesn't mean you've got adequate cybersecurity protection. And then
correct.
Another interesting fact is 60% of SMEs unfortunately close their doors after a successful cyber attack or breach, which is actually a sad reality. And then just specifically to South Africa, we all know about the POPIA, the Protection of Personal Information, and also the Cybersecurity Act, or Cyber Crimes Act. It means that a company can now be held liable for the effects of a successful breach or a cyber attack on their systems. So it's no longer a question of you've been attacked and you've now remedied. Now it becomes there's liability that's connected to that attack. So
and the directors are liable.
Yes.
Importantly.
They are the company is liable. So if I can just unshare the screen. So basically that's a backdrop for me as to why this is such a critical discussion. And we've mentioned the fact that 70% of businesses and we can almost say 70% of the small and medium, the SMEs, don't have adequate security. What would it mean if we say that a business's cybersecurity system should be robust or adequate? What does that mean from a DFA perspective? How do you see that?
Man, it's quite interesting that you showed those stats because those stats almost echoed my
Mm.
introduction.
It did. That's why I wanted to
Basically.
show it. Yeah.
Yeah, it literally echoed it. I think part of the problem, before I talk about the robustness of the cyber security side of things, I think part of the problem always is that, and I'm just going to generalize now, IT in a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, it's viewed as a grudge purchase.
Mm.
And, I have to do it. I don't really want to do it, but I have to do it.
Mm.
Okay. So I'm going to do it as cheap as possible. Secondly, also, I don't think that sometimes the small business owners, and I mean, I'm not generalizing, I'm just making a statement. They don't think sometimes strategically, and it's not their fault. They say, I only got 10 users, 20 users, or 50 users. What 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 can go wrong? And this solution should be able to work. So just a typical example of that, and it's not even security related, but we used to find clients sometimes, and I mean, DFA has got clients from 5 users up to 25,000 users.
Mm.
So we can speak of
The
experience
entire
across
spectrum.
the board.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite a wide spectrum. And what we find sometimes is that, so the client decides that they're going to go buy a laptop. And again, I'm not slating the business or anything. It's just an example. So they decide they're going to go buy a laptop at Computer Mania or Incredible Connection or at Macro because it's on special. And all great. The price is good. And they buy the laptop and they come to us and they say, here you go. We want you to put this onto our network. Thank you, Mr. Client. One problem, the operating system has got Windows Home. Whether it's Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
Windows Home.
Yeah.
We need to join it onto the network, onto a domain. Home security and enterprise security and business security is two completely different facets.
Yeah.
And that's then where the problem comes in. And that's the reason why I'm saying that sometimes they don't think strategically. They just look at the price and they say, I need a laptop. Yes, it's got this processor, X amount of disk space. Let me take it, let me buy it, let me put it on.
Yeah.
And then we come along and we say, problem, this OS needs to be upgraded because it's not going to work or not be protected on your network. It can't join your domain. And then now here's where the problem starts, because the device that they bought could be a consumer device, not a business device. A lot of these brands, HP, Dell, they got the consumer range, they got a business range.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, when you do put on the, let's say the Windows Pro system, it now affects the warranty of the laptop and the support on the laptop from the manufacturer, because it says, no, that's not what we endorse. We endorse Windows Home on this device. So the whole thing starts snowballing.
And the cost.
Now I'm going to, yeah. So, and then the cost comes along with it. But now I'm going to take it a step further. So now they say, but why do we need basics here? Why do we need antivirus? It's coming free with McAfee preloaded or Norton's preloaded or Avast or, any one of those brands. And then you say, okay, all good and well, but you're not the only device on the network. We need to manage 10 or 20 or 30 devices on your network. And these home products, once again, is not designed for business use. Hence, there is no central manageability around it. So hence, these devices start operating in isolation. And I think that, to go back to your point about the actual robustness, and this is where I'm going back to your initial question, is that how do you build a robust environment from a technology and from a security perspective when you have these, if I could call it, these weak links in the actual chain? All you need is one weak link. All you need is one gap, or one hole, or one point of entry. And there's the weakness. So in terms of robustness, I think as well that sometimes the small business owner is under the perception that, I'm going to spend such a lot of money to get all of this done. Okay. No, I mean, there are solutions that are targeted at small business. I mean, like I said, we've got from 5 user right up to 25 user. So, and I can tell you now, the technology deployed, utilized, and that is implemented at the various clients, it's all different. It's even brand different. It all depends upon what the requirements are. However, there are basics. There are basic principles that apply throughout. Yeah. And you have to make sure that you've got the basics in place. Like for example, a small business may not need a SOC. They may not need a SIM. Those are things that the enterprise or the medium enterprise is going to actually look at. However, if I take our DFA Protect solution stack, within there, I would go so far to say that we actually got an affordable SOC or SIM service. It's not a SOC, it's not a SIM, but we got an affordable SOC or SIM service for the small business as well. So it's not as though that those technologies are going to be out of reach. I think it's a matter, I know this sounds like a sales pitch, but it's a matter of talking to the right people, but it's also a matter of trust. So at one stage, Nino, and it feels like this, us computer guys, especially the security guys, at the moment, I think clients feel almost like we are the guys that got the gun to the head. And I'm generalizing now. I mean, I remember people used to say, it must be the antivirus companies that write the viruses, because how do they come and get the fixes so quickly? Correct, yeah. But what they don't realize is that these companies, and just in general, there is so much research around there. I mean, there are what they call honeypots and it's exactly that, a honeypot. What is a honeypot? It's a pot full of honey. It's something that you can get for free, something that you can exploit. So what happens when the hackers do their attacks and how they attack? Those are the areas that they go for. And that is how these security companies can see what is actually happening and what is the new tech that these guys are using. I think the other scary part that's also happening, which is quite important, is that nowadays you can actually get a hacker for hire or a hacker software as a service. You can actually buy credentials from them of a site that they may have hacked, that you may want to get into or get information from. I mean, I read the other day, and it was so interesting that even on the dark web, they've now even got almost like a judicial system where, let's say I want to buy, or I come to you and you the hacker, and I say to you, please sell me X amount of credentials, and you sell me these credentials. Now I must pay you, but I actually don't pay you. Okay. And I use it. They've now got a system where they actually got an adjudicator, and there's almost like a war, seriously. Call it honor amongst thieves.
Honor amongst thieves,
to actually where you can now start taking action against me, and I get blacklisted for not paying you, giving me the information.
Oh my word. And so stuff evolved.
I mean, correct. I've even seen where they got a reward system. Like you go to Clicks and Macro, and you got the loyalty points card. They even got those things running on there. So it's a completely different world. So
it's like you get rewarded.
Correct. Yeah. So when you talk about the actual robustness of a system, robustness of a system is that it has to have layers. If you don't have layers, you're going to have a problem. And I mean, I'm going to sound like a stuck record, but I mean, it's your device layer, it's your mobile layer, it's your network layer,
your
it's
cloud
your
layer,
server layer, it's your cloud layer. it's your...
Deon, talking about layered security. Yeah,
Sorry?
and talk about layers. One of the layers that I know of, and that I've been, I always sound like a stuck record when I talk about this. You've mentioned the weak link, and now you're mentioning layered security. And just for clarification, layers doesn't mean different systems. So it doesn't mean because you have a antivirus and you've got a separate firewall and you've got a separate whatever. You now have layered security. That doesn't that's not layered security. Layered security is something else.
No, that's not layered security.
Yeah, one of the layers, for example, that I constantly talk about is your user as the weakest link. So how important is it actually to educate for companies? How important is it for them to educate their employees in terms of security? And you've mentioned this. But I want to, again, like I said, I sound like a broken record when it comes to this. Because for me, it's really important because wherever I've been involved in breaches, it was never somebody hacking a system at a high level. It was always a user that clicked on something or a user that opened up a document or put a flash drive into a system somewhere. It was always, in my case, but I would say in most of the instances, users. So how important then is it to educate users from a company perspective?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most, I would say, it's the most underrated aspect of companies or in the approaches that I've seen around cyber security. What happens is that traditionally companies will say, I have to have an AV, I got a firewall. So all they're thinking about is the protection side of things, okay? They're not thinking about the preventative. Now, I must distinguish the difference between protection and preventative. When you protect something, you are protecting against something that's going to happen or could happen, should I say, that could happen. When I talk about on the preventative side is taking action to make sure that something cannot happen. So if something does happen, the protection kicks in. To make sure that something doesn't happen, that is where the preventative side. And that area there, not enough focus and attention is actually given to that particular area. And with the result, as you rightfully said, most of the attacks that have happened has actually come through someone. Or it has actually, or it's been initiated by someone doing something. Doing a certain action.
Yeah, internal. It's an internal weakness.
Doing a certain action, And the interesting thing is that, so we've got a cybersecurity awareness training program that we put together. And again, we use different technologies and different methods and, and the approach that we took was a managed services approach of the training, not a classroom approach. Because we felt exactly what you were saying now is that it has to be continuous. It has to be literally, if I can use the term, in your face. It's something that you need to live with every day. Like in the morning when you get up and you brush your teeth, it's got to be relevant. And I think what's also very, very crucial is that it's got to be interactive and it's got to be literally included in the DNA of your environment. Now, when I say included in the DNA of your environment, one of the programs that we run is a phishing exercise. And it's actually quite interesting. What we have found is that, so we kick off our training program. Before we kick off our training program, we do some questionnaires just to get a feel of the knowledge of the people, where we see the gaps and, and possible
like a benchmark
areas that we need to focus on. Yeah, correct. Yeah. And it's quite amazing when you see the answers. And then you start the testing. And when I say the testing, so, so we go do a little phishing campaign. And we find that sometimes in the beginning, the phishing campaign, the people are quite vigilant. We can see great response. People are not clicking on it. They're doing what they are supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Then I use the term, then we let sleeping dogs lie. And we do it a couple of months later. And bang, that's it. We catch them. And we actually do we actually do something that's relevant in the environment. That's what I'm saying. It must be part of your DNA.
Yeah.
So we did an exercise with a client once. And in this particular town, there was great specials at KFC. And we gave away KFC vouchers. And yeah, even the mayor enjoyed it.
KFC.
So, and the thing is, all you need is one person to click.
Yeah.
You actually want no one to click. That's really what you are aiming for.
Yeah.
Because all you need is just that one gap, just that one hole. I always use the analogy. So you got a bucket, and the bucket is full of water, and that's fine. But one little hole in that bucket, what's going to happen? Yeah. The water is going to
go. Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about. Is to make sure that there are no holes in that bucket. And I have interesting conversations with stakeholders every year that are on our program, because now it comes up for renewal, and they'll say to us, is it really bringing value? And then we say to them, okay, let us do another test and let's see. We do the test, and suddenly we pick up a whole bunch of stuff. And then they say, ooh, okay, we can see that people are being lax, people are not being vigilant again. Yes, it is. So, and I know it sounds weird, but we actually bring the value by exposing what the weaknesses are.
Yeah.
In the actual organization. And then obviously we focus on those weaknesses and we train around those weaknesses. And we got different means and methods of how we do the testing. It's not something that I would like to discuss in complete detail, because that's literally giving away how we do it.
Yeah. No.
But phishing is definitely one of the exercises.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for sure.
So what I will do in any case is afterwards I will include the DFA contact details. If people want to talk to you afterwards, then they can make contact with you, then set that up. Yeah. So Deon, what?
And Nino, yes. Sorry, if I can just add to that as well. We got no problem also if someone wants to engage with us, and obviously they got to be serious about it, where we really got no problem doing almost like and it's not difficult for us to do, a non-obligatory test to actually give them an idea of exactly how, I wouldn't use the term tech savvy, I would say secure savvy. How secure savvy is your organization?
Yeah.
I mean, in a week or two, we can basically tell you.
Yeah. So I think that is very important, Deon, especially going to my next question. And you've mentioned, you made the example of somebody buying a laptop at a retailer like a Macro or a Incredible Connection or whoever. Now with the lockdown, right? We saw a lot of people being forced to work from home and that type of scenarios, and
using home devices.
Using home devices, but also importantly, they connect to their home internet, which might not be as secure as your internet or your connectivity at your office, where you're sitting behind firewalls and stuff. You don't have that at your house, for example. You don't have the same level of security. So what kind of impact does that have on a company's cybersecurity in general?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I think that this entire lockdown kind of caught everyone by surprise, even the IT industry, the security industry. if you just think about it, I mean, working from home, really, that wasn't even part of the
Yeah.
part of the job. You know, you in your job 8 in the morning, out at 5.
It was actually frowned
You switch.
upon.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
Ah,
and you kind of switch off, and then you're done. You know.
yeah.
But so the advantage of having people in the office is that you got your firewalls, you got your perimeters, you got all your security, you got your hygiene, you got your processes, you got everything in place. So the nice thing about it as well is that when you got everybody in one building in the same place as well, you know, same thing as well. Everything is alarmed, everything is secure, etc., etc. Now, here comes the challenge because as we we know, most of the organizations also have what you call the domains. They got policies, etc., etc. So the machine cannot join the network unless it meets a particular criteria, and therefore it will get isolated or bounce off again, etc., etc. Now you got somebody sitting at home, possibly using either their mobile or their home PC, going through their home network, connecting to your secure network. And you got no control over whether that home PC has got antivirus on it. The home PC could be used for the kids as well, playing games, going online, going on to Pirate Bay, you know, all the usual things that the kids get up to. Yeah, and then you also got the other challenge, which is a policy challenge, where and when I call it a policy challenge, is that it's not the organization's device. It is the user's device. So how does the organization now start applying rules and regulations to the user's device?
Private device, yeah.
So correct, to the private device. So what we have seen as a matter of interest within the industry, before the chip shortages and, you know, and all of these things started kicking into play and really becoming relevant, there was a hell of a boom on the IT side where the guys were smiling because suddenly corporates and businesses that could afford were actually buying equipment now to own for the person to actually use at home, you know, which is great because now they got control over the device, okay? But then they had a second challenge. The second challenge now was that users were moaning to say, but now you're using my bandwidth and you're using my airtime, you know, all the normal challenges that you sit with.
The
So again, we
BYOD.
found some, yeah, correct. And amazing, before BYOD was only around a mobile device, not around a computer system or a laptop. And so what we found some of the businesses doing, I'm just mentioning these trends. Some of them then decided to install their own bandwidth, you know, using LTE or various mechanisms and that. And then some of them decided to actually then contribute towards the end users' communication costs, you know. So there were quite a few ways or few elements how people started dealing and how people started handling with working from home. Now, part two, the security side of it, the lockdown side of it, to make sure that that device is secure. So when the device was owned by the corporation or the business, the guys would apply their policies and it would be locked down. And most of them we've seen have come in via VPNs because that was kind of, call it, the quickest way to actually get onto the network. However, for those that had the infrastructure, however, what we did also see start happening was the SD-WAN side of things started also, you know, the software defined side of a wide area network started kicking in, which, as you know, you don't need all this equipment because it's basically software now that is controlling the access and the secure access around that WAN. However, adding on to that, Then we had SASE kicking in, you know, which is the secure access. So what SASE brought to the party is that SASE basically allowed you to bring the SD-WAN technology on, but with all the security. So suddenly there came your AV, there came your firewall, all controlled via software. And the nice thing about the SASE technology is that you could be anywhere in the world. So the traditional VPN and the traditional MPLS networks, things started morphing, things started changing, you know. I think what's also happened, and I'm talking about this in particular because most times when you got the VPN, you are going onto your local LAN and you're connecting. With the SASE, with the SD-WAN, you're now connecting to your servers up in the cloud, or you could be connecting to your servers down, sitting on your local LAN. You could be connecting anywhere, which was absolutely great, because at least now you got the flexibility, you got a secure logon. There's a global view now of what is actually happening on your network. There's a global view of the device. You can control the AV on the device, the updates on the device, and suddenly it now becomes managed. So your traditional way of managing on a LAN, this entire lockdown situation changed the whole landscape. It changed the spectrum. Look, SASE's been around for a while. SD-WAN has been around for a while. It's not just brand new. It's been around, and there are quite a few vendors that are doing it. Some very well known big company names or vendor names within the industry is actually doing it. It's still a bit fairly new in South Africa, but definitely in terms of, if I could just mention this, in terms of security, in terms of moving forward, and in terms of, call it the traditional wide area network, we definitely see the SASE technology at some point, and obviously it depends upon cost as well, but definitely becoming more affordable. And we kind of see people moving more and more into that world, into that direction. I mean, you know, let's just take the old traditional file server in the old days with offline folders and synchronization. It's gone. OneDrive, you know, Dropbox for business, you know, suddenly file servers, it's not really needed, you know, in terms of your traditional file and print. So in terms of security, we actually seen security in terms of SASE being a lot more agile, a lot more flexible, and a lot more adaptable. Because again, in the old days, we had to have a portal for the firewall and a portal for the AV and a portal for the managing the WAN, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Now we see this convergence starting to come to.
And at the end of the day, you had people, you needed people to manage all those different aspects. You needed somebody to manage the file server. You needed somebody to manage the mail server. So even from a resource perspective, the new way, if I can call it, for lack of a better word, is better.
Yeah, but I think what's very important here as well, Nino, is that, and I mean, again, I'm generalizing, but I mean, I've seen suddenly everybody is becoming security experts. You know,
yes, definitely.
I mean, we've just seen it mushroom. It reminds me of a good couple of years ago where everybody was an MCSE, if you recall.
Yes.
You know, and I'm glad that Microsoft's made that a lot more difficult. It's different. It's a different ballgame now.
Yes, definitely.
And what I have noticed as well on the security front as well, amongst the vendors, for the guys in order to certify and to get the certifications, gone are the days of them just being able to wing in it. You know, a lot of the ways that these guys are tested nowadays is scenario based. Okay. So there's more than one way to answer the same thing.
Yes.
And because of the scenario-based testing, we see, I mean, even our guys, sometimes they need to do things 2-3 times before they get that 80%. But we know by the time that they get it, they know what they are doing.
Yeah.
You know, so in from our side, yeah, you can't just become a security expert overnight. That's why I've surrounded myself with smart people, and I'm not shy to say it. I don't know everything, but I know the guys lower down. They know exactly what is going on, and I can depend on upon them. You know, as
and I've worked
well.
with I've worked with some of them, so I can attest to what you're saying because I've worked with some of them from different aspects. As a client of DFA, I've dealt with some of your guys as well. So yeah, I can attest to that.
No, great. So as I was saying, so I'm actually glad that things have become tougher, so that not just everyone can become a security expert.
And you're right.
The experience and you need to know what's going on.
Yeah, you're right, because in my company, the amount of emails I receive from people wanting to sell security services to me, and then you go and you go and research the company that's trying to sell it, and then you can't find anything in the history relating to security, meaning that it's almost like
popped up.
They popped up and they want to ride the gravy train. And unfortunately, there are people that fall for that, for those pictures. Unfortunately, because they come in. I don't want to say cheap, but it appears to be cheap. It's brilliant salesman, that type of thing. Then maybe just to finalize, if we're talking to the SME market, and we mentioned right at the start is that portion, not just the SME market, but that not took up a bulk of the stats. If you can give your top, let's say top 3 or top 5 tips for business owners as to how do you go from this point where you are now and to get to that point of moving forward in terms of cybersecurity to make sure that your environment is protected. What is your almost like your quick wins? I don't want to talk too much about long term, because in the IT world, long term can be 3 months is too long, because it's rapidly changing. But what would be your tips, your 3 or 5 tips for business owners to basically jump in now and say, listen here, focus on this immediately to just get to that point of being robust from a security perspective, a cybersecurity perspective?
You know, I think you know, it's like building a house. If you don't have a solid foundation, nothing else is going to go according to plan. You know, and that's not even talking long term. You know, so you have to have a solid foundation. I think the first thing that a business owner needs to think about is that what you can't see, you can't manage. Visibility is the most important factor in any, and I'm not even talking about protection at this point in time, because if you don't know, how do you know what to protect? You know, so the first thing from a business owner's perspective point of view is to have visibility of his complete network, his or her complete network. Make sure that your IT company that you have employed or that you got, that they have got tools in place to give complete visibility of that network. Because once you got visibility of that network and you're monitoring that network, you can then start seeing what is actually lacking on that actual network and on those devices. And I'm talking generally now. I'm not going to go into the specifics. Once you know what there is and you've got the visibility, the second thing is to identify the actual weaknesses. Okay. And once you've identified the actual weaknesses, then the third thing you need to do, because SMEs, you don't have money laying around all over the place that you can just go and splash or whatever. The third thing that you then need to look at, you need to prioritize on what needs to be addressed first, to make sure that you address the needs and the requirements of those gaps that have been spotted. And in that way, you can take a phased approach in order to get to where you need to get to. So from my perspective is that the first thing you need is definitely visibility. The second thing that you need is that you have to make sure that you can identify where the gaps are. The third thing is that you then need to prioritize your actions so that you can start taking actions against those gaps or those areas that need attention. Now, the interesting part about that is that doesn't mean that it needs to cost you money. A simple thing. So on the network, the guys don't have an expiry date for their passwords. Okay? Simple thing. Go and make sure that every 30 days, everyone needs to renew their password. It's not going to cost you anything. So sometimes the SMEs got this perception that, oh my word, if I'm going to go through this process, it's going to end up costing me. Yeah. Not everything is going to cost you. There are certain things that you can do. Another simple thing. If the device is so out of date and there's a problem on the device and it's got virus issues, whatever, take it off the network. Unplug it, switch it off, reload it. When you got money again, make sure, okay, now you can put it back, depending upon obviously the criticality of the device or how important it is. So, but there are certain things that if I can say, there are certain basics that they would have to do. For example, please don't use free antivirus software. Free is free for a reason, and in actual fact, antivirus is not going to protect you. You actually need an anti-malware solution, which basically covers the ransomware, the virus. It can operate in a signature-less environment, zero-day attacks. So you need a decent commercial off-the-shelf anti-malware system. The second thing as well is that whatever router you're using or device you're using, and again, I'm talking SME here because enterprise would have dedicated firewalls. Make sure that there is a firewall on there with the basics. And if you've got a firewall on there with the basics, and if there is a subscription mechanism, in other words, if the firewall offers a facility to maybe scan your mail, protect against viruses, preventing incoming hacks, denial of DOS attacks, I'm really talking basics. Prescribe, pay that once a year annual fee. Trust me, if someone's going to come onto your network and take you out on ransomware and encrypt your data, it could end up crippling your business. You could end up closing your business. You're going to sit with reputation damage. And I'm not even talking about copy now. But just the level of trust of dealing with that company then becomes a issue.
And we mentioned,
so have a phased approach.
We mentioned that 60% of SMEs that close down after a successful cyber attack. And the one thing that I found is your SMEs, they always, I'm not saying always, I'm also generalizing now, but I get the sense that people think, it won't happen to me. I don't have any important information in my company.
False sense of security.
It doesn't matter what information you have in your company. That's not that's not what the hackers or the cybersecurity attacks are after. They are just attacking to find out what you've got. And in doing that, you are crippled. And I've personally experienced it. And it's crazy.
Also, Nino, I think what the guys in South Africa need to realize, you're 100% correct. There's this full sense of security to say, not going to happen to me. They're not worried about South Africa. South African companies, what's happening in the world at the moment is that, and I mean, you can see it. It's pretty obvious. There's definitely a battle between East and West, okay? Between the Eastern powers and the Western powers. And what's happening to countries like South Africa,
collateral damage.
We become the ham in the sandwich. We're actually in the middle.
Yeah.
So when the East attacks the West, or the West attacks the East, or vice versa, however these attacks go, we are not immune to it anymore.
Yeah.
We in it. I mean, if you look at what happened with SolarWinds and the Sunburst attack, if you look what happened with Kaseya recently as well, and they call this supply chain attacks, because what they're doing is that they are attacking the companies that provide the management technology and the support technology in order to maintain systems, and that is how they basically get in to the other companies. So they successfully get in where the companies haven't taken the necessary precautions.
Yeah.
They don't do patch management, they don't do the basics, and bang, they're in, and then they start spreading. Yes, some of those were targeted attacks. If you look at the stats that has come back and the information that we all read about. But trust me, don't think that you are immune. I mean, when Transnet was being attacked, Max Steel was being attacked as well. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw that.
As well. So suddenly people are saying, wow, Transnet, Max Steel, you actually not immune. And I always say prevention is better than cure, and you can't manage what you don't know.
No, you're right.
That's it in a nutshell.
Good, man. Deon, I think this was a good chat. So lastly, thank you for bestowing your knowledge of the security world on us. And I know this can be a very long topic, and we can go on and on, and each facet that you mentioned, each facet is almost like a topic on its own that warrants a discussion on its own. So if we talk about cybersecurity awareness, we can do an hour discussion just on cybersecurity awareness. We can do so it's a topic on its own. But in general, I think the information shared was very good. What I will do is I will put up your contact details as mentioned, the DFA contact details, if anybody wants to get in touch with you guys and have that discussion. I mean, like you said, it's not necessarily something that will cost the company thousands and thousands, but they're not going to know if they don't discuss it with the right people.
No,
and I think you've opened that channel. We'll put the detail up.
Yeah, Nino, thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for your time as well. And I hope that, whoever watches this and they take the time to watch it, that they find it of some value. But I think, as I said in the very beginning, the nice part about DFA Solutions is that we walk the talk, and we can talk from experience.
There was something else you meant. There's something else you meant.
Well, the other thing that I like to mention as well, just as a matter of interest, is that we basically big enough to deliver, but we're small enough to care as well. And that's very, very important.
Yeah, and I mean, the list of clients that you serve attest to that. And I mean, I've seen the list. I've spoken to some of the clients that you do serve, and everybody's got the same sentiment. So, Deon, all the best, and thank you again for taking the time, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Nino.